listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you with me. Pretty good show on tap for you here today. Not necessarily turning the page towards Vanderbilt yet. I understand everybody really wants to talk about the future of the LSU program right now, and why not? I mean, they have 4 losses. All their goals are done. It makes sense that you would start looking forward to year 4. Yes, they have 2 games left to play, and yes, we will talk about those 2 games, but today we will do that. We'll focus in on the future a little bit, and specifically the roster and what you have to do to help it improve as you go forward into what is a very important year 4 for Brian Kelly. And I want to look at this idea of Bryce Underwood saving Brian Kelly, because you've seen that a lot lately after that Florida loss. And while I don't necessarily think it's wrong, I don't necessarily think it's right either. So I'll explain what I mean there, and just in looking at, where they need to improve most on the roster, how they go about doing those things, and what the future can really look like with this coaching staff and the influx of talent that is due to arrive in Baton Rouge, starting with the early signing period in roughly 2 weeks, December 4th. In terms of turning the page briefly to Saturday's game against Vanderbilt, Brian Kelly did pass along updates along the offensive line to Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger, so we'll pass those along as well. And then Matt McMahon and the LSU basketball Tigers, they look for 4-0 tonight. They welcome in Charleston Southern Tuesday to the Maravich Center. Look, LSU's a 28-point favorite in that game. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on it. They should win it. But there are a couple of things that I want to mention quickly that we will do to punctuate today's show. So subscribe if you have not already. Like, share. Follow me on social media, Twitter X at Musso Matthew. On Facebook, you can find me as well. And Instagram, too, at Matthew Musso 1. All of that greatly appreciated. Let's start with the updates to the offensive line. So, obviously, Garrett Dellinger has been missing since the second quarter of Texas A&M. Ended up with a tightrope procedure on the to fix the ankle injury that he had. And since then, there's just kind of been a day-to-day, week-to-week deal with him. They feel like they're getting closer, but he missed the Alabama game. That was coming off a bye. He missed the Florida game. And Paul Mubenga has filled in his spot, and it has been a struggle for Paul Mubenga in that spot as a young guy playing next to another young guy in the interior of like DJ Chester. It's just been a steep learning curve. And look, he's had to go up against an Alabama front, and then obviously Florida's front that was able to wrangle 7 sacks against Garrett Nussmeier. It's just been baptism by fire there. And then Miles Frazier goes down very early in that game. He would return late, but went down very early, and Tyree Adams, in the emergency role that he was placed in, coming off of his surgery for sports hernia, first game back in a while. I mean, in over a month, and he took some licks there as well. So Brian Kelly on Monday updated the status of both Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger.
Yeah, we believe that Miles will be able to practice this week. Dellinger will still be where do we think he is early in the week to make a decision later in the week. We're getting closer. We're getting closer where we think there's a chance that he could play, but we won't make that decision until probably midweek.
So with Frazier, that's pretty good news. They expect him to be able to practice this week, and if he's going to do that, that lends towards him playing in the game against Vanderbilt on Saturday. Dellinger still being, kind of taking it day by day. You're getting closer. Have an answer more midweek, so we'll keep our eyes out, our eyes and ears out, I should say, for an update from Kelly on the coach's teleconference on Wednesday morning in regards to Garrett Dellinger. If Dellinger can't go, with Frazier presumably being fine and resuming his position at right guard, and Tyree Adams, I'll remind you, Brian Kelly, leading into the Florida game, mentioned Adams probably a week away, but if they needed him in that emergency role, he could play. Well, he played in the emergency role, but now another week has passed. Is he ready to go? I would think you probably see a combination of Paul Mubenga, Tyree Adams, or maybe it's just Tyree Adams in that spot if Dellinger can't go. But one of those two guys would be the next man up there at left guard if Dellinger is again out. Okay. Now, let's get to the conversation about the future. And we've had a little bit of this conversation kind of already, but let's get a little deeper. So, LSU has a personnel problem. And if you're angry that LSU has a personnel problem in year number 3, that's perfectly understandable. In fact, you kind of should be. But there are reasons for it. And again, that doesn't make it okay. But it's also on both sides of the ball, too, as we touched on Monday. We've all harped so much on the personnel issues that they have on defense. They have them on offense, too. Whether your running back depth is just taking a huge hit, and really Caden Durham is your go-to guy there as a freshman, and he's been really good at times. Like, he's been awesome. He's shown great flashes, and you're excited for his future, and you should be. But you don't have a true number one wide receiver. Separation has been a huge issue there. You have a lot of good players and a lot of bodies there, and you've been able to be successful, but you're not as strong there as you could have been. And as you have been in the past, I also should say. You have a first-year starting quarterback. Like, there, you got a redshirt freshman playing center. Like, there are personnel issues on offense as well. So what are the reasons the roster isn't where it needed to be in year 3? Because a lot of people will tell you, man, it's your 3rd year. You've had 2 recruiting classes go through there now. You've got a couple portal classes. Like, you have been able to build the roster the way you want it. Why is it not good? Well, the first thing I would point you to is really you've had 1 recruiting class. Go back and look at LSU's 2023 class. This is Brian Kelly's first full class, I should say. When he took over the job from Ed O heading into that the 22 season, late start, obviously had to just hold together what high school players you had, and they went heavy in the portal, and they hit. And that's why they were able to turn it around so quickly. Your first full class was the class of 2023, when Brian Polian was your recruiting coordinator, and we all know how that went. The approach was not great. The focus was not on the state of Louisiana as much as it should be. It was much more of a national Notre Dame-style approach, and it didn't pan out. And if you don't believe me, just go look at the class. LSU signed 27 high school guys, and you had 13 transfers. But of that class, a lot of guys, not only are they not starting for you or playing significant roles, they're not even on the team. Lance Hurd plays at Tennessee now. Okay? Deshaun Womack was a 5-star, and he just didn't travel to the game with you against Florida. You've seen him play a little bit more this season, but not in a huge role. Javian Toviano just hasn't necessarily panned out, and there's been off-field issues there. Jalen Brown is no longer on the team. Shelton Sampson has struggled to get on the field. Jackson Howard, no longer on the team. DJ Chester is starting for you at center. So, I mean, that's a positive there. You've seen a little bit more of Kamorian Pimpton, but with the giant playmaker he was looked upon coming in, I would say, not necessarily haven't reached expectations. Now, granted, you didn't need him in 2023. You had Neighbors, Thomas, and all, and Lacey and Taylor. And all. I get it. The ball can only go to so many different guys. Whit Weeks, that's gone pretty well. Like Whit Weeks is your starting linebacker. You haven't seen much of Kylan Jackson yet. Caleb Jackson has been disappointing. Tyree Adams had emerged into your 6th lineman. That's a good thing. Ricky Collins is your backup quarterback. Mac Markway is gone. Trey Holly, we know about the legal situation there. Ryan Yates is gone. Kyle Parker, you saw a little bit of him this season, but now is injured. Kai Preen is gone. Christian Braithwaite, gone. Jeremiah Hughes, gone. Paul Mubenga, you finally got to see him a little bit. Jackson McGowan, gone. You get the picture. I could keep going, but it's really the same thing. Connor Gilbreth, gone. Ashton Stamps is a starting cornerback. That was 4 guys, or 3 guys, that we said were starting out of that class, where you expected a big jump from Caleb Jackson this season. Didn't happen. You expect big things from Shelton Sampson. You just haven't seen it yet. Expected a big jump from Javian Toviano. You haven't seen it. That's one reason. But now when you've revamped your staff, especially from a recruiting standpoint, bringing back in Frank Wilson, the focus, Blake Baker can recruit. Bo Davis, recruit. Joe Sloan, hell of a recruiter. You revamped that whole staff, and you've seen that Corey Raymond, and you've seen the dividends improve. But that's one reason the roster is not where it needed to be. Those are all guys who are in their second season at LSU, or should be if they haven't left, some of them left, and you just haven't necessarily seen the jump that you wanted. And you might say, well, man, if you can't get it out of those players, how are you to believe they can get it out of the players in the 2025 class? I'm going to come back to that. The other reason your roster wasn't necessarily where you needed it to be is you stunk in the portal. Just quite honestly. I mean, you go back and look at that portal class you brought in 13 guys a season ago. Denver Harris, that didn't work out. We know how that went. He's gone. Aaron Anderson, that's been really good. But he's taken a big jump this season. You still haven't seen J.K. Johnson very much. Jalen Lee, non-factor. Ovia Gofu, I mean, he's gone. Obviously, he only had 1 year of eligibility, but he didn't really hit there. Omar Spates was completely misused, clearly, as he's doing great things for the Los Angeles Rams now. So we'll put that one more on, he had Chestnut, the corner, had another year left. He's gone. It wasn't working out anyway. Logan Dick, we go down the list there. You missed. And in a sense, you have this season too. And part of that is you were so slow to get going in that early portal window, the winter portal window, that you set yourself back when it came time for spring. They weren't aggressive enough early. And all the big name guys were mostly off the board. So I would tell you that is mainly the 2 reasons it wasn't where it needed to be in year 3 so far. So how do you fix it? We'll get to the 25 recruiting class momentarily, because that's a huge part of this, in tandem with the current team. But it has to start in the transfer portal. And Brian Kelly was asked on Monday if he expected the portal number to be higher than he would want this season, the portal additions to be higher than he wants this offseason. Because remember, Brian Kelly has always said he wants to build it through the high school ranks and supplement through the portal, and here's what he had to say.
The transfer portal will be something that we have to investigate and look at. I do not want a program that is built, if you will, on the portal. We have to rely on young players. We are playing a lot of young players, as you know, right now. First-year players, those that are here for a very short period of time. We have 19 coming in at mid-semester. So we're still going to be playing some younger players, but there needs to be the right mix and right balance. So the transfer portal will be something that is examined closely, and if we feel like there's a particular need there to balance off our football team, we're certainly going to be invested in that.
So he mentioned playing a lot of young players, and we're going to come back to that. If there's a need that balances off the football team, we'll certainly be invested in that. It needs to be early, and it needs to be aggressive in this first portal window when the giant influx of big-name guys go in. If LSU feels they're in a better spot with NIL that will help them compete there, which I imagine that they do, especially given what you've kind of seen them be able to do in the high school ranks of recruiting. Like, they're not paying these guys nothing that are at the top of the class. You've seen bigger money ticketed for the high, name transfers more often than not. But again, they're not paying these top recruits nothing coming in. So the evidence to support that, yeah, they are in a better NIL space and should be able to go compete for guys they need. To be honest with you, for me, the needs haven't really changed. that much for LSU. I'd love to see them get some help at safety. If they can. Now, yes, you have really solid young talent there. You saw a lot of Deshaun Spears early, and he was the number one safety in the country last year, and you hope he takes a jump, but I think you need some help there, obviously, still. Along the defensive line, and yes, you've seen some really good things from young players that we're going to get into. You'll get Jacoby and Guillory back, which is great for a veteran presence. And, man, he was ready to take the next step this season, so that helps there. But, again, yeah, help there would be great. Maybe even on the edge, losing both Swinson and Jones. I get it. You'll have talent there and young talent, and totally understandable. But that's a spot. I mean, that's something LSU did great, and Blake Baker's going to want to create havoc. You get a big name there, I'm all for it. I'd tell you running back as well, because you just don't know the uncertainty with the Trey Holly situation going on there. Yes, you have two in this class in JT Lindsey and Harlem Berry, but, then you have Caden Durham. Brian Kelly said it after that injury that he's kind of transitioning into moving on to the next phase of his life, suggesting that football is going to be in the rearview mirror. You need something else there. If you can get a really veteran guy, and who knows what's going to happen with Caleb Jackson. So if you can get a really veteran guy there that can contribute immediately and be an impact player, yeah. So we can go on and on. I think there's more. But it has to be early. It has to be aggressive, and you have to kind of go all in on certain positions. Now, to the 2025 recruiting class, and I've taken a long, winding road to get here, and for that I apologize, but I wanted to be as thorough kind of as I could. There's been this idea that everything hinges on Bryce Underwood now. Can Bryce Underwood save Brian Kelly's job and tenure at LSU? And I said off the top of the show that I don't think it's incorrect to ask that, but I also don't think it's totally correct. I hate the word save in that question, right? And I've seen that. Can he save him? It's up to Underwood to save him. I don't like the word save because Brian Kelly's job is not currently in jeopardy right now. It's just not. So he really wouldn't be saving anything. For something to be saved, it has to be in danger. And I understand why everyone focuses on Underwood, but it's not just Underwood that's key to this. And like I said, I get it. He's a potential generational player, program changer at the most important position in team sports. I wholly understand why all the focus is on him. Number one player in the country, number one quarterback, 5-star plus. I get it. But the rest of that class is pretty damn important too, y'all. The rest of that class is pretty important too. Harlem Berry is going to be a big part of this offense. According to On3, you have 2 5-star cornerbacks committed. They're going to play early. DJ Pickett, Cade Phillips, they're going to play early. And they're going to strengthen that room, especially with a guy like Stamps going to be in year 3, having played. That's going to be huge for LSU's defense to potentially bring shut-down cornerback play back under Corey Raymond. And Zy Alexander's been very good, and I think Ashton Stamps has taken a very nice jump and has really improved. That's going to be huge. You have pretty good receivers in that class that are going to be massive for LSU going forward. You have to hang on for Derek Meadows right now. Probably doesn't look too good. It was a bit of a shock when he committed to LSU. Everybody thought he was going to Notre Dame. But we'll see. You're bringing in some really, really good linebackers as well to help strengthen that room. And we'll see who else comes back. So, again, I understand why all the onus is on Bryce Underwood here. But what makes LSU's recruiting class in 25 so damn good is, yes, the talent level that they have in it, like the Bryce Underwood, like the Harlem Berry, like Carius Kern, like Cade Phillips and DJ Pickett, and so on and so forth. But it's also the balance in the class and how you're going to build depth at every single position and bring in a generational player at the most important position in team sports. Then you add that in with what you've seen on the team, even Brian Kelly saying playing young players and what you could potentially get back. Guys who are injured that had another year. You know, a guy like Harold Perkins or so. He's still projected pretty high in the draft, but, you know, we'll see how that goes. But Kelly talked about all the young players they're playing, and he's right. And you've seen a lot of development from this coaching staff on both offense and defense, and you've seen a lot of, you know, young guys get their feet wet. We mentioned Ashton Stamps. Ashton Stamps and Zy Alexander have taken a big jump under Corey Raymond this season. You saw Whit Weeks take a jump under Blake Baker, and he's got another year under Baker to get even better. Swenson, Jones, under Kevin Peoples. Ahmad Broad, Gabe Relaford, Dominic McKinley. We all know Bo Davis can coach. You're seeing that. LSU's defensive front at times looked like the strength of the defense, even after Jacoby and Guillory went down. So, yeah, you have faith in Bo Davis there. Those guys, a lot of them are coming back. Caden Durham's gotten better throughout the season under Frank Wilson. Aaron Anderson under Cortez Hankton took one heck of a jump in his second season there. So when I look back at that 23 class, like we said, and it's like, well, if they couldn't handle that one, you know, what makes you think they can handle this one? Well, you've corrected the coaching staff, and you have great coaches on the field now. Not just great recruiters, great coaches helping these guys, and you've already seen it. So, yeah, you give them elite talent like you have that 25 class, that feels pretty good. Your roster should automatically be better. So, again, I'll push back on the whole save the job because I don't think the job is in danger. But I'll just reiterate what I said on Monday and last week. It heightens expectations. It makes it harder to defend shortcomings because now there is going to be no excuse. You close out this class like it looks like they will. They've lost one guy out of it, Devin Harper. There's a couple more you have to look at. We mentioned Derek Meadows, Mike Tyler, a tight end. South Carolina's really turned up the heat there. That's his home state. LSU went in there and got him earlier. You'll see there. You lost Devin Harper to Ole Miss. That stinks. That stinks. It's a guy who's the number 3 player in the state of Louisiana. But you still have a really good offensive line class. It happens in recruiting. There's guys we always say is a can't miss. A lot of those guys we call can't misses aren't necessarily a can't miss. You know, you can miss here, but grab another great player there, and it turns out okay. Sometimes that great player turns out to be Jamal Adams, you know, when you miss on Hootie Jones or you know, that worked out okay. That can too. So they keep this together, and the development that they've had this season with certain players who are going to be returning, it's going to be in a spot where you finally want it. You'll have your quarterback of the future and all that. Shortcomings are going to be damn near impossible to defend at that point. So while I don't say can it save it, it just turns up the heat a lot and the expectation a lot because now the roster's where you want it and the coaching staff is where you want it. The only thing left is to go get wins. And ultimately that is what will determine everything about the future of this program and who's leading it. But you're still a little bit of ways away from that. You got a couple years. This is going to be a trial with this because 26 class is going to be pretty good too. So we'll see how it goes. All right, quickly before we get out, LSU, Matt McMahon, the men's basketball team, they host Charleston Southern tonight at the PMAC, looking to go 4-0. LSU a 28.5 point favorite in this game, so we won't spend too much time. The one thing I really want to see is how LSU comes out after success. This is a letdown spot. LSU goes on the road. They dominate Kansas State, Power 4 game, and it got even national attention. LSU basketball account put out a tweet it was a picture of just a bunch of tweets like from national people talking about how impressive the win was. We've all talked about it here as well, plenty. And rightfully so. It was very good. Now you have the letdown spot at home. Your first time out after hearing how good you've been and how good you are now. How do they respond? I don't think they're in any danger of losing to Charleston Southern. Like I said, they are 1-4 and 0-2 on the road, and LSU is damn near a 30-point favorite in the game. LSU will win this basketball game. But can they come out and string together 2 dominant performances? That's mainly what I'm interested in, especially in this type of spot where, you're all hyped up, played in front of 11,000, raucous environment in Kansas State, and you owned it. Now you'll come back home to the PMAC. It won't be packed, and you're facing a Charleston Southern team that has 1 win on the season. After hearing how great you are. This is a spot that you want to see them perform well in. So we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll let you know how it goes. That's going to wrap it up. Y'all get subscribed, smash the like, all of that greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media, and be here next time for more on LSU Daily.